Well, it is Wake Up with KC, and today I have a very, I guess it's important now with everything that's been going on, and trauma and the emotions and that energy that we create through the trauma. How do we heal, and can we heal from trauma? So today I have a very special guest, Ashley Michelle, joining us today. Ashley,
Hi,
welcome back.
hi. Thank you so much for having me back on your show. It's a pleasure.
Well, I heard what you were up to, and I was like, oh, yes, got to. I think, this is just a very awesome time to do what you are going to share with the audience today. How have you been since our last episode that I had you as a guest?
I've been really good, really busy. Just swamped with blogs and videos. My YouTube channel got released, Ashley Inspires. My website, like I said, is full of blogs. My Finding Strength Through Tragedy Facebook page is growing. My TikTok has gone to 10,000 likes now. Yeah, so everything is growing really, really well. And I am so happy and I'm so grateful and I'm so blessed. Sunil Gotzi. He's the one who opened this door for me, and I am so thankful to him and his team for all their hard work that they've put in. And there's actually a park behind me where I live, and they actually just put a bench in for survivors of crime. So that's really nice too. I'm gonna be doing a blog on that coming up as well.
Wow, you have been busy, girl. So, just to update the audience on, what you experienced in your trauma, can you share with us again?
Yeah, sure. So, like I say in every single podcast that I am on, my trauma just didn't start in 2016. In order to heal from your trauma, you need to start back from where it originally started from. And my childhood started back in when I was a child, essentially. I was bullied in school. I was slapped across the head by my biological father, called effing stupid. So lots going on there. So, your self-esteem, your self-confidence, your self-worth diminishes. And then when I got to college, I entered a very toxic relationship, which was abusive at many points in the relationship. And then fast forward to 2016, I was jogging through a park in broad daylight and I was assaulted there. And then a couple of weeks later, I found myself in the middle of a murder scene. Uh, didn't think that I was going to get out of there alive for a split second. The apartment was covered in blood. The back of my shirt was covered in blood. I had been dating this guy off and on, casually, and he ended up murdering his best friend and then tried to take my life in the process and strangled
You
me
know
with a.
what? Actually, your volume fades in and out.
Okay, I'll move it closer. Is that
Ah,
is that better?
yeah, a
Is
little
that
better.
better? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want me to start from the beginning?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So my trauma actually started from the beginning of childhood. In order to heal from trauma, you really have to go all the way to where your trauma started. And my trauma started at childhood when I was bullied, slapped across the head by my biological father, and called effing stupid. And then I entered a toxic relationship because what you see is what you know growing up in college, which was abusive, both mentally, verbally, emotionally, and sometimes physical as well. Then, secondly, when I fast forward to 2016, I was assaulted on a trail while running in broad daylight. And then, shortly after that incident happened, just a couple of weeks, I found myself in the middle of a murder scene where I had to essentially fight for my life, but be cool, calm, and collective at the same time because I knew that showing any type of fear would essentially get me killed. Um, so I was sexually assaulted, I was strangled, and I had a knife pointed to my back, and the he took somebody's life and tried to take my life in the process. And then from there, everybody thinks, okay, like your trauma ends, but it's just like the very beginning stage of your trauma. So I ended up having to go to the pre-trial. I ended up having to testify and going to the actual trial. And then 2 years after the facts, finding out brand new information and having to process that all over again. And not only that, a month before the trial even happened, I had to spend about a month going to the courthouse and, going through my 911 call again, watching all the tapes with all the tape recordings with the police. So it definitely takes you back. And then as soon as the trial is over, you now have to fill out paperwork with the parole board. So what happened to me and what happened to the deceased's family, we both have a life sentence. This is never done for us. We have to deal with the individual who committed this violent act and essentially committed murder for the rest of our lives. So we too face that life sentence. And there are so many people that are impacted and survivors of crime all around the world, worldwide, nationwide, countrywide. And for me, I knew that this wasn't an Ashley situation. It was a worldwide epidemic. And I had to really step to the plate, and I had to be the voice of reason, be the voice of change for other people who are experiencing this type of horrific trauma. Because something that really stood out to me was when the police sat me down for the first time, and they didn't ask me what happened. They asked me, can you please make us a promise? And I said, what is that promise? And they said, please don't turn to the streets for drugs, prostitution, etc. And that really, really stuck with me. Because could you imagine being 15 or 16 years old when your brain hasn't even fully developed yet, or 14, or even a child going through this horrific violence? I couldn't even imagine. And I'm so lucky and I'm so grateful that I had a great team of police, that I had, a great support system. But for many people, they don't have that resources. So they end up turning to the streets in order to try to solve their problems, only it doesn't solve their problems. It just brings them in deeper and deeper. It's a temporary solution. It's a band-aid fix. And so this course really that I'm releasing really focuses on how do you heal from your trauma? And that has to come and start with you.
Well, actually, let me ask you, self, during this, course that you were creating and whatnot, have you had some, like self realizations, God realizations of, why certain trauma keeps repeating itself, with abuse and whatnot? Isn't it safe to say that it's emotional, energetic trauma?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. So I myself actually did my own course. I went through it and I put all the examples of my own stuff in there. So the course focuses on fears, surroundings, relationships, and emotions. So they're all like chart based essentially. So I put all my examples in a chart, so that way people could be relatable to them. And yes, you're right. It's an eye-opening experience, and it is a bit emotional because you go in depth into, okay, so where did my trauma come from? You definitely have to touch on that key aspect. And it talks about not running from your emotions, because so many people run from their emotions and don't face them. I'm not saying that I'm perfect by any means, but I really wear my heart on my sleeve. So I feel everything so intensely fast, and it's like a roller coaster ride of emotions for me. So my emotions got so overwhelming that I ended up trying to take my own life. So I do kind of discuss that, and really focusing in dealing with your emotions head on and not trying to, mask the pain. And what I mean by that is, like, for me, there were times where I cried in public. If you have to cry in public and you have to let it out, I really highly recommend letting it out, because keeping it inside and keeping it bottled up, that's when you're going to turn to negative solutions. You're going to turn to that quick fix. And so I really focus on that, and I focus on relationships. Relationships were key in the healing process. Relationships with coworkers, romantic relationships, family memberships. Like I had a very toxic relationship with my biological mother. I was always the one putting in the effort. I was always the one, asking her on the phone, are you going to ask me how I am? And that's draining emotionally, mentally, and physically for yourself. I believe that relationships need to be 100 and 100. They have to be give and take. I can't always be giving and giving and giving. It's draining on every level, on every aspect. So this course really is a true eye opener into what you need in your life and what you don't need, and the changes that you need to make, and the steps to take those changes. How are you going to take these changes? What are the action steps? How can you move forward today and take action over your own life? Like, this course is designed for a better you, for a better tomorrow, because after all that horrific trauma, you deserve only to have the best in life. That's what I truly believe. And it took me a long time to get to that point in my life, because there were so many times where I had that survivor's guilt, where I felt like I shouldn't be here. I felt guilty for living. I felt guilty for even breathing. I felt guilty for crossing the street. And that took a lot of healing through counseling, through dealing with my emotions, through, analyzing my relationships. You really have to self-reflect and really dig deep. And I don't think that that's selfish at all. Putting yourself first and foremost so you can be the healthiest person you can be, I think is vital to the healing stage.
I totally agree with you on that, Ashley. And, during I did a lot. I mean, I've been through some counseling and whatnot, but there were just some things that just really didn't resonate with me. And I wind up going within. I was very adamant about it. It was like I was having a Mexican standoff with the universe, God, the Tao, whatever you want to call it, and myself. And that's when you want to know the truth and you're coming out of a pure heart of why you struggle, why this is happening, and you know, it shows up. And a memory will pop up too from your past, which is key. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, absolutely. It's key.
And then the one thing that a good mentor, Dr. Wayne Dwyer, he mentions about, your your parents didn't create you. They had a part in it, but your soul essence and that higher self is the true creation. And then it just comes into a human form by two different beings.
Mhm.
So then if you're in a toxic relationship with parents and experiencing abuse, it's one, oops, we lost her. She is an amazing young lady after going through everything that she's been through. I couldn't even imagine a young as young as she was, and oh my gosh, what a total transformation that she's made. And she's created a course. And here she comes back now.
I don't know what happened.
Ah, that's okay. I was just talking about, your transformation and the course that you're creating. Um, and then sometimes because we're like taught about conditional love
Yes.
through our upbringing, through our parents. But
Mhm.
my question is like, well, how do they know what love is if, when you see different aspects of love, but you're not seeing it through, you know, your own family, and you start questioning, well, why is it that way? I see other people that I really like how they, you know, like express love or demonstrate love, how they are expressing love. But when you're at home in that environment, it's not that way. One, it's confusion, and you really honestly don't know what love is.
No, 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 you don't.
And it causes you to attract things in your life that are really wind up being toxic. It's like a history repeating itself.
Yes, it definitely is.
And that's emotional, energetic traumas that just keeps passing down. And then
Through
we go,
generation, yeah.
yeah. And then we wind up going through something to like wake us up.
Yes, exactly. No, I completely agree with you.
So, is there certain aspects in your course that you share that with and go through the steps with the client or the customer client, I
I
guess?
go through Yeah. So I go through my own personal journey and I talk about some of those volatile relationships and the steps that I chose. Like I will give chances and I will talk about my feelings and emotions with that person. But if they can't respect it after having a conversation and you keep trying and trying, then it's really time to take the action steps to cut them out of your life. Because I
Mhm.
know from my own trauma that life is short, that life is precious. And so for me personally, if somebody's not serving a positive purpose for me, that I'm just getting all this stress and getting all this tension, then that's not worth it for me. It's
Right.
yes, it's hard to leave something, and people really are judgmental in this way too. Like for me personally, my family is who I make it to be. I don't feel like family needs to be defined by blood like most people do.
Mhm.
And if a person that is blood related to you is not serving your greater purpose, then what are you doing? You're wasting your own time, in getting yourself better and getting yourself to where you need to be. It's really, taking a hard look at your life and that extra stress, that extra tension you have. Why are you allowing it to enter your life after you've been through so much worse in your life?
Right. And it's like that negative energy.
Exactly. Like I believe in the law of attraction, like what you put out there, right? Like
Mhm.
it should be positive. It should be happiness. It should be joy. It should be laughter. And some things aren't going to always be perfect all the time, yes. But when you're always putting all the effort and all your energy into something and it's not turning out how it should be, then it's time to just, set sail and be done with it, like once and for all. Like I gave chance after chance after chance. How many chances do you give before you're just drained, before you're just exhausted? Like why keep doing that to yourself? How is that healing for you?
Right. And would you know, have you noticed or had a realization about, sometimes, you know, it's their negativity and, what they're projecting is really truly their limited beliefs, their programming and their traumas that they just don't want to change. They're stuck, but some want to tend to pull you into their,
Yes, I've noticed that. Yes.
and you're like,
I
"Nope."
Yeah, no, like I'm like I can't be pulled into that. Life is just too precious and it's too short to be having all that drama, to be having all that conflict. You want things that are going to only build you up, especially if you've had to, like myself, I literally had to rebuild myself from scratch all over again. So
That's
I'm really
Go ahead.
sorry. I'm really, careful as to who I let in my life now. It's just not like a free for all anymore. Like I have to, in order to keep moving forward and healing and growing and learning, you have to do what's best for you. And I don't think that that is being selfish by any means necessary. The only person that takes care of you at the end of the day is essentially yourself. You have the right to choose who you want in your life and who you don't. You have the ability and you have the power to also choose what fears and what surroundings you let in your life. And that's something else that I address. Like, yes, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. I do have fears about, my ex getting parole in 2030. but it's about not letting it consume my life and take over me and, lie in bed every day soaking about something that I essentially, yes, I give it an impact statement, but I don't have the power and authority. I'm not an officer. I'm not a judge. I don't get to make those choices. At the end of the day, those are in somebody else's hands. And I have to try to let that fear not take over my life because that will kill me essentially. I have to just, it's day by day, it's hour by hour, it's minute by minute if you have to. It's learning to go at your own pace, but not letting those fears consume you, especially after everything that you've been through in your life. It's, putting those fears away in a safe spot, putting them in a box and then putting them in the closet. And when that day comes, that's when you can deal with it. And there is uncertainty with some of my fears. I mean, there's pearl packages. I don't know when I'm going to get one of those. Like, I could have the most fantastic, wonderful day, and all of a sudden I check my mail and my heart sinks to the ground. That's another fear of mine because it's the anxiety, it's the, anxiousness that I get because, again, I don't have control or power over when I'm going to be sent a letter, when I'm going to be sent his testing scores, etc. I don't have that power and authority. So I have to really be careful and I have to really dig deep into my toolbox. So the first thing I do when I get one of those pearl packages and it sets me off, or an anniversary date or whatever the case is, I reach out to my counselor right away and say, okay, I need to sit down, I need to talk to you, and I need to work out some strategies to cope and get through this, not get over it, but get through it.
Mm-hmm.
And then another thing too is when I get those packages, I immediately text the deceased's family so they're not caught off guard like I was. And my headspace immediately goes to what are they going to have to endure when they open their mailbox.
Right. And so you mentioned something earlier, and I was like, well, that's just part of the transformation, you know, of evolving. You're learning more
Mhm.
and evolving and transforming. And some of that stuff, the old stuff and the old beliefs and the programming and those traumas that you're healing from no longer, keeps you prisoner in a way.
Yes, it certainly does.
So I just like, I'm so proud of you that how far you've come and what you're doing and where you're going is truly amazing.
I just have to, like, I have to keep going and I have to keep moving forward because there are so many people out there that are going through this horrific journey. I mean, I wish I could sit here and tell you what happened to me was an isolated situation, but it's not. Like, there are people, there are witnesses, there are survivors of crime, and there are young kids going through this. And I could not imagine being a young child whose brain hasn't even fully developed going through this. And I talked about this too on our last podcast, but now when I see people on the streets, like, I don't ask myself why not. I ask myself why. Like, what horrific trauma did they go through to think that this was the positive way to be? Which we all know that it's not. But for them, it was the escape route. For them, they either didn't want the counseling, they weren't offered the counseling, or they gave up on themselves too quickly. And for me, that's heartbreaking that somebody chooses to stick a needle in their arm versus going to a counselor and get help and get the proper treatment they need. Instead, they're just putting on this short-term fix that could eventually end up getting them killed. So I really need to be the voice of change, be the voice of reason. I mean, if one of my videos on YouTube can help inspire or shed some light, to somebody else that is going through this, then I'm all for it. I just want to be able to touch as many lives and reach out to as many people as possible. I mean, there was this one person actually from the States that reached out to me, and her son was a witness to a homicide. And that's what I want. Like, right there is I want, and I just, all I did was send her community resources and some support. And she was so appreciative. And I just listened without judgment. And sometimes that is the best thing that we can do for somebody else. Like when I was going through my stuff, I didn't need judgment. And I got judgment from some people. And I was like, okay, like I can't listen to that right now. Like you sometimes all you need is just that listening ear, somebody just to listen to everything that you have to say. So that way that person can get everything off their chest and they're not going to bed with all that stuff bottled up inside them, because let's face it, that's not healthy and that will lead to a lot of negative downfalls.
Well, not only that, but if you don't deal with that emotion, that energy, it manifests into a physical matter such as conditions, diseases, sicknesses,
Yeah,
and
yeah. Mhm.
whatnot. And sometimes it shows up because it was a generational thing and it will manifest itself and you had no idea.
Well, yeah, I even wrote 2 blogs on, people don't often think about this, but their sleep is affected after trauma. How do we get back those 7 to 8 hours of sleep? So I did a blog about that, and then I did a blog about eating. Some people end up, trauma ends up leading to different eating disorders,
Mhm.
anorexia, bulimia. I mean, when my grandfather died, I went bulimic for a while. I'm not gonna lie. Like it took I didn't know how to properly deal with my feelings as I do now because I've matured, I've grown. Um, but that's essentially what happens when you don't deal with your emotions and you run from them. All these negative things start presenting themselves. And it's a really bad, bad fall to go down. Like nobody wants to be, hospitalized or go through an eating disorder their whole lives or have a feeding tube or any of that stuff. So that's why it's so important to really dig deep in that time and really take care of you first and foremost. That is the best healing gift that you can give to yourself.
Wow. Um, it is. And it's only, we are also the creators of our experiences too.
Absolutely, I agree with you.
And even that emotional energetic traumas that's passed down, it's like a law of attraction. That energy's
Yeah.
still there and it draws in the same experience. It's just different time period. Come to find out, and I was like, wow, we gotta change, gotta wake up. And you know, my thing is like, why do we have to wait to a catastrophe, you know, or something horrific? You know, we probably had the signs all along. It's just we didn't understand, or we just tossed it aside. And then we get into our jam and go through experience. But let me ask you this, with everything that you went through and now what you're doing, is it safe to say that you've gained so much wisdom and you found your purpose through everything and what you're doing now?
I was actually just going to talk about that. So thank you for asking that. I had something important to say in that topic. Yeah, like so many people say that they're sorry for what happened to me, and yes, what happened to me was horrific. And I'm not just talking about the 2016 event, but like all the different traumas that I went through in this life. I don't necessarily regret some of them. Like I feel like they were lessons. They were a part of my life story. They are a part of my chapter. They have shaped me into the person that I am today. Do I hate that somebody died for it? Absolutely. Do I wish I could trade places with them in a heartbeat? Absolutely. Do I? I know that if roles were reversed, I know that the deceased of the 2016 murder, he would be doing the exact same thing as me. He'd be sitting here having this podcast, this conversation with you, because, like myself, we both give the shirts off our back for absolutely anyone. And I really believe my book is actually called Finding Strength Through Tragedy, which can also be purchased on my website, ashleyinspires.com. But that title alone is like what got me through everything was finding that strength. It's about turning all of that pain into strength. That's what it's about for me personally. It was finding a way to turn all the horrificness into something beautiful, something powerful. And, like the PTSD, the anxiety, the depression, I did have some depression growing up. I did have some anxiety growing up, but now I'm so much more aware. PTSD is not just something war vets get. It's something that people who have experienced trauma get. And it's been such an eye opener that I can now be relatable to these people and say, yeah, you know what, I know depression. Yeah, it's a struggle to get out of bed. I can actually be relatable to them. And I believe that everything that has happened to me has been a teaching tool and a teaching lesson for somebody else. That's what motivates me and inspires me every day to help somebody, is knowing that my story can give somebody else the tools that they need in order to not get over their trauma, essentially, but get through it. It's day by day, it's step by step. It's a process like no other. Like what's going on with me is still happening with me. Like I said before, those parole packages, that's still an ongoing thing for the rest of my life. But am I letting it take over? No, I'm looking for ways to help other people, to motivate, to inspire, to help other people that are going through this horrific time, because nobody should be going through this alone at all. People need support. People need somebody to listen to them. People need a confidant, someone that they can trust, someone that they can rely on. And I want that person to be me. I want someone to look at me and say, because of you, I didn't give up. Like that is my purpose and that is my mission in life, to just help and inspire as many people as I possibly can on this journey. I just want to be an advocate for change. I want to, be that positive role model that just is there for people, that is just that support system, that network for somebody else. I want my videos to not just, yes, research and data and statistics and numbers are definitely important factors, but there's so many other things. I want to take all the emotional pulls. I want, somebody to be like, yeah, I felt that, I experienced that, I went through that. I want to be that relatable person for somebody else.
Well, Ashley, as a coach, I'm just going to give you a little nugget for you.
Sure.
Take the want out of I and
Thank
replace
you.
it with I am the advocate. I
Thank
am the
you.
support. I am
Thank
standing for
you.
those that have survived a criminal crime, a trauma. It's not I want, because you're speaking of experiencing the wanting. No, honey, you are. You I am. You are. You're doing it already.
Thank you. That means so much to me. I can't even tell you.
So you're standing in your purpose and doing it now. So you are. Ashley, say, I'm an advocate.
I am an advocate.
I am healing others from their traumas.
I am healing others from their traumas.
There you
And I'm
go.
loving every second of it. I'm loving every second.
Awesome. That's what I was hoping to hear from you. And you are
That
doing
is way better.
amazing.
Thank you so much. And so are you. Like you are helping so many people. I mean, you've connected me with other people just through Wake Up with Casey. Like I can't even tell you what an honor it is to be back on your show. Like you are an inspiration. You are a beacon of hope for other people.
Aw, thank you. It is work, but I know my mission is to help others heal and connect others, because we're all one big dysfunctional family, but we're all
I
here to help heal.
Yes, we are. And that's what we should be doing. That's what we need to do. We need to all be there and be that support, be that voice of change for somebody else that is going through stuff. And I really truly believe that having this platform and allowing people to share their experiences is helping other people tremendously, without even knowing it.
Ah, thank you. And Ashley, would you say, because I know, you know, during your, I guess, transition from the traumas and whatnot, there was some probably labels of, the PTSD, the anxiety, and all of that. Uh, it probably prescriptions that were, probably given to you to help you cope and whatnot. Is that safe to say?
Yes, so I would not take the antidepressants at all that my doctor suggested, because I saw what they did to my biological mother, and I didn't want to be that person that relied solely on pills. And then with the anxiety meds, that's what I used to try to kill myself. I tried to overdose on them and mix them with alcohol, so it just wasn't a good choice for me to go down that path of any pharmaceutical medication. I think I'm not over depression or anxiety or any, like, I still get anxious when I'm in large crowds of people. It's just about, okay, what do I need to do to help myself get through this? Do I count things in the room? Do I focus on, like, if I'm in a crowded area or on a bus, for instance, I stand by the closest door. So I have that exit plan if it's too much or if it's too overwhelming. Or when I'm in a store, I try to stand as closest to the front as I can, if it is crowded. I always try to make a plan so I can feel comfortable and I can feel safe. And as for the depression, depression is so hard, especially in the winter when it's dark at like 5 p.m. So I take like a step to step process. Okay, I got to get up out of bed. I got to put my slippers on first. That's what I need to focus on right now. Then it's like making your bed. Then it's brushing like, it's a step by step process. And I really try to this is something that I found extremely helpful, and I hope that this helps other people listening to this. But for depression and for like not wanting to get out of bed, I'm somebody who is almost never late. I really try not to be. So I book like different appointments, rather that's a podcast or rather that's a coffee date or a breakfast date with a friend. So that way, okay, I know I need to get up at this time so I'm not late. I know this is where I need to be at this time. I need to be on this podcast at this time. So it's setting up something for yourself. So not only do you have something you'll look forward to in your day, but it's a reason, it's motivation, it's a technique to get yourself out of bed when it's, pitch black or a rainy day or just when you're struggling. So that's what I try to do. And then, for me, I think the best medicine for the PTSD, anxiety, and depression are not only doing these podcasts and blogs and writing a book, but the gym. The gym has been that, it's like a mini vacation for me. So essentially, it is helps me in a positive, get into a positive mindset. It's where I just go, I plug in my music, and I just take that me time. I really focus on, okay, so it's arm day today. This is what I'm going to do for arms. And it really helps with, how you feel emotionally, mentally, physically, even verbally, like how your body language is, the words you're speaking to yourself, those affirmations. Like, it really, really helps me. Like, I don't just go to the gym for that physical component of strength. I go for that mental component of strength as well.
Wow. And, a lot of, like with depression and anxiety and PTSD, it is an emotional trigger. And
Yes.
we could choose either to stay in it or flip the script because it's connected with the mind, the heart, and our digestive system.
Yes, I agree with you.
So it's like you could choose, like when you get up, and at first, and I'll share this technique. I used to be, dealt with the experience of depression,
Right.
and from everything, from my abusive marriages and whatnot, and what I went through with that. But then I decided, and then when I started waking up and having spiritual experiences, then it was like, okay, wake up. It's like creating a new positive habit because people form habits, habits form their future.
Yes.
So I decided that, you know what? Before I lie down at night, I'm going to think of what it is that I'm looking forward to having in like my future self or what I'm doing in the future. I'm going to focus on that and how it feels to have that when I go to bed. Then when I wake up in the morning, I do the same thing because it shifts that
I
energy
love that. Yes.
because you're creating that emotion, that energy. Energy flows where attention goes.
Yes. I agree.
So that's just a little nugget that I've learned to do. And you know what? I'm hardly like, even though I go through like some stressful things or some things that is like frustration, I don't get as depressed as much anymore
That
because
makes
I'm
sense.
working on the inside of what the vibration, the energy that I, and the emotion that a state of being almost.
I
And
try to do yes. No.
it it's amazing how things shift on the outer too.
Yes, it is.
Like my car broke down, but I wasn't all freaked out. Like somebody over, I kid you not, somebody, I went to go get an oil change, a few months ago, back in October, not August, right? So shortly after, my engine light kept coming on. So I told my boyfriend, I'm like, my engine light's coming on. I can't why? I got my oil change and everything. So can you check it out? So he tested it and goes, oh, we got to change this thing. So he goes and changes it. Light goes off. Then shortly after, it came back on again. And then it started blinking at me. And I'm like, I've never seen that before. And then it was like running really rough. So I'm like, okay, don't freak out. Don't panic. We'll find the solution to what and the
Right.
truth of what's going on. So I didn't have a car for a week.
Oh my gosh.
Come to find out, when they did the oil change, they overfilled my engine with the oil. It was overfilled to
Stop.
where it was bubbling and foaming, and it was, like, nasty. So
That's so scary.
I'm like, "I could have blown my engine, or I could have done
Yeah.
like, what else could have done?" So I instead of choosing to be "woe is me," or get depressed about it, I'm like, "This is out of my control, and I'm not gonna allow this to interfere with my joy, this energy that I love being in. I can't allow that. That's out of my control. Why am I going to get upset over it? We'll
Right.
figure out a way." And not only that, I'm experiencing hot flashes now. So I'm going through the transformation of menopause. So this is a wild ride. I can tell you that much.
Yeah. I'm
So
kind of even at my age, I'm familiar with the hot flashes.
So
Uh,
I'm like, wow, it's like I'm feeling a hot flash now. And I'm like, okay, another hot flash. Okay. And I think when I'm going through this, I'm like, I am so looking forward to celebrating because I'm not going to have to wear manhole covers or mini diapers anymore. So, okay, we're going through this, because, after so long of having to wear manhole covers, which are tampons, mini diapers are the pads, my gosh, it's sometimes a pain in the ass when you go through your periods. So I'm looking forward to the day. Don't have those anymore. And this is only temporary. So just chill. Go through the motions, baby, because it's celebration time is coming right around the corner.
or
It's how
when I sorry, go on.
it's like how you perceive.
Yes, yes, yes. And I think too, when we get into those moments or have something negative happen, like your car engine, I try not to go, woe is me as well. I try to like, okay, Ashley, think of something you're grateful for. Think of something you're grateful for, something that
Hmm.
makes you happy, you know? I really try, as hard as it is sometimes, to really focus on those things that we're grateful for, the people in our lives, the projects we're working on, those types of things.
So when you're thinking and focusing on that, what emotion, what feelings are you putting with that? What you're focusing on that you're grateful for? Do you do that too?
Yeah, like I if when I think of something positive, like I try to like focus on that excitement feeling, or you know, I try to focus on that joy, that happiness. I try to, like, I'm obviously not perfect. I still have those mad, sad moments, but just trying not to stay in them for
Mm,
very long. Just remembering that, bad stuff is
mhm,
temporary. Like, you're not always going to be in that moment, and focusing on, okay, but I got all these other things that are, that's my purpose, that's my joy, that's my inspiration. So just
mhm,
trying to come to a realization that, you know what, bad stuff does happen, but it's not always going to be there. How can I trump that with and put a positive spin onto it, right? Like, your oil, your car, that happening to you, you learn from it. You you move on from it. You don't
right,
stay in that moment forever.
and, do you give your I don't know about you, but, when I have since I don't get, depressed too much anymore, maybe once in a blue moon, but getting upset or having a pity party for myself, I give myself a time limit.
That's really good. I like that.
I'm like, "You could go through this," because you're acknowledging, and instead of suppressing your feelings or trying to push them aside, just acknowledge them, embrace that, and say, "Okay, you got 24 hours to get over it." And then you get your big girl panties on and let's go. We'll figure out something, but go ahead, go have your pity party, go be angry, go get upset, but you got 24 hours. And that's all you get. That's what I tell
No,
myself.
I really like that. I really like having the time limit on it. That's a good way of doing it too.
So, and it takes practice, but you remind yourself. See, sometimes, I mean, I just give a warning out to people like, hey, if you see me talking to myself, I'm getting the best damn advice ever. So just, don't be alarmed. And that's when these things come to me because I'm actually talking to my higher self, that divine essence that is in me. Can't lie to me, but it's always encouraging and loving. And that's what I connect to. And I'll be
And that's,
honest.
yeah, that's what it should be.
So it's an amazing journey of life. You
It
know,
really is.
there is a positive and there is a negative. You got to understand that there's both of them and just learn to balance it. You
I
can have
was
more
just about to
positive
say that. Yes,
because
definitely.
you can't get rid of the negative because it's
No.
the it but you can get more positive and keep the negative at a distance.
Yes, absolutely. You can.
So I discovered I'm like, oh, why can't we just get rid of the negative? Well, it's like the polar or duality kind of aspect.
Yes.
There
Exactly.
has to be both. But which do you choose to have more of? The positive, of course.
Exactly. No, I agree with you.
So you have your course now.
Yes, I do. That can be
And
found on my website.
what is the course name?
Healing from Trauma. And like I said,
Oh,
it focuses on emotions, surroundings, fears, and relationships, which are the four things in order to heal yourself, for yourself and for a better tomorrow. Because let's face it, we deserve to take that time for ourselves.
well, yeah, and you only have one life, so I'm like, let's cover our asses, heal whatever we need to heal to become and transform to the best version of ourselves that we see and we envision our imagination, what we'd like to do, what we would like to be, and what we'd like to have a better experience in our lives. And it's it's an ongoing. It's not just gonna come bam like a fast food, McDonald's. Here you go. But it
Yeah,
gets easier. And
it
how
does.
long is your course? How long is this course that you're
So it's at your own time limit. I think it closes out within a week, if you haven't gone to it, but we can always give you longer times if you need that. Um, i I feel like once you start, I mean, for me personally, I kind of just completed it all. Because once you start, you. Some people need to like take their time and do one thing a day. Do the fierce thing one day and do the surroundings the other day. But for me, like I just really got into it, and I kind of knew where I wanted to go, where I wanted to focus on, what I needed to work on, what are some steps that I took. So for me, I think I did it in one weekend, and then I went through it again and the following weekend. But no, it was a real eye opener, and it's just something that you want to do, you want to complete, because you just get insight, you get clarity, you get understanding, you get a new mindset with this course. And you also get a free copy of my ebook because there's a lot to, really from a relationship standpoint. Where if you're reading my book, there's different things where you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that. Like there's a chapter in my book called Manipulation, and it talks about how, there's very volatile relationships where they'll tell you what makeup to wear, what to dress like, and et cetera, et cetera. And again, that's something that you could use in that relationships when you're looking at your relationships. Do you have that manipulative partner in your relationship? Rather, that's a parent telling you how to dress, the makeup you're wearing,
the
or if
parents?
it's a
Yes.
romantic relationship, right? So
Coming
it's
from the parents, I totally get it because the parents were controlling and you have to be this way. You can't wear makeup and your
yes,
skirt's too short. That's control and manipulation as well.
yeah,
But they're like, oh, but the Bible says. I'm like, no, don't even get me started on that one.
no, no, I agree. And like even trauma bonding is something I'm focusing on right now, and just part of my blogs and my videos. And people think that trauma bonding is only in romantic relationships, but it's not. Like it's emotional extortion. That can be in any single relationship that you have, essentially. It could be with your best friend that you have that trauma bonding. It can be with, a parent that you have that trauma bonding with. There are so many missed red flags that everything that control, manipulation, dominance, power is only in romantic relationships. But it's really an eye opener because guess what? It can be in any type, it could be with your coworkers that you have that type of dynamics. Those kinds of negative red flags can be found anywhere, essentially.
And in religion and in politics. I'm putting it out there.
Yes, agreed. Agreed.
And I'm amazed that people don't see this. I'm like, you guys don't see this. Like, wow. Because I'm being a
No,
history geek and studying, and this is like from my spiritual growth of what's been shown to me. I'm like, oh my God, now I see why we're in the shape that we're in.
yeah, like some
And it
people
goes
just
from our
think,
ancestors and the
yeah,
misconceptions of who we are and how religion and politics and government was established and how things were written and whatnot. It's mind boggling. Like,
it
oh,
is.
I just like, that's why I got out of religion and I'm just, I don't talk about, my political beliefs, but I'm like, it has to change. That's one thing I can say is like, it's gotten out of hand and now that's why there's all this chaos. I'm like, oh, now I see why the chaos is happening because now after chaos there comes some kind of order of organization and
Yeah,
balance and more positive than what was corrupted and not good for us. So that's how I'm going to go with that.
No, that's absolutely fair. Like, I completely agree because so many people think that this negative stuff just happens in romantic relationships, where this is my course essentially like analyzes and like it helps you to evaluate like all the relationships that you have around you. You even have a relationship with your hairdresser, like we have more relationships than we're even aware that we actually have.
Hmm. So, and that's why I keep my, like, I have just a small inner circle of friends, you know, and there's other friends, and it's not so much categorizing, but I have friends that, are like minded in business. I have friends that are in the spiritual. But they're each small, not too big. I couldn't handle them, I don't think. But I have just, and different categories of helping me have balance.
Exactly. You want balance and you want boundaries too, right?
Yep.
So I think that
So,
that's really vital to like look at all of your relationships, look at what's, positive and meaningful in those interactions and look at what's negative and what's toxic and what's something that you need to cut out of your life. And yes, it's scary to cut out things in your life, but again, it's looking out for yourself and doing what's best for your purpose, for your journey in order to get to the healing process. Like it has to start and end with you. Like you're in control, you're in charge of your life. It's you get to decide how you want to live this life. Either, being stuck and having that pity party for yourself and being trapped in your trauma, or, expanding your life to yourself, giving you the gift to relive a beautiful, healthy life filled with meaningful, positive interactions with the people around you, with yourself too, first and foremost, and doing self affirmations too, I think is really important. And that's something that, I address in it as well is we need to turn this, and I say this in many podcasts too, we need to turn the dialogue around. I never once looked at myself as a victim. I don't think anyone that has gone through trauma is a victim. I think they're a survivor. I think they're a warrior. I think they're brave. I think they're courageous. So really looking at it from a language perspective. I mean, too, and this is something I address in the relationships in the course is coworkers. I got so much judgment and so much ridicule. Like, oh, you're telling me that you didn't see this coming, et cetera, et cetera. And I talk about, okay, what are the steps in order to deal with that and not let that, because I'm such an emotional person, not let that take over you. How do you go about moving forward in coming to a positive solution about those comments that you get? And I understand like people who haven't gone through trauma don't really know, but like common sense is common sense. Use your words carefully, think before you speak. It's just that simple, because you can't say to a 15 or 14-year-old, oh, you didn't see this coming. Of course they didn't.
no,
Some,
like
yeah,
I didn't expect to get raped by a drunk that threatened to commit suicide. At 15, we don't have the mind capacity to.
that's what I was just about to say. No, we don't. And like some of us are young, and I know I was young and naive in college. I never knew what a real meaningful relationship was. Yeah, I had my grandparents as, a role model, but at the same time, like I didn't know what healthy boundaries looked like for myself. I didn't know myself well enough to even be in a healthy relationship. Where now I know myself better. I know what I deserve and what I don't deserve.
Hmm. Good for
Like
you, girl.
it's all about the experiences in life, and it's really evaluating those experiences and what brings you that happiness, brings you that joy in your life, and what isn't serving your purpose, and how do you go about taking action steps to no longer pursue that. I just think it's really important to live your best life in every possible aspect of your life. If those coworkers at work are being judgmental or being hurtful, and human resources, nobody else is doing anything about it, then maybe it's time to start looking at other jobs.
Oh
Maybe
yeah,
because
because
you
you shouldn't
have
have
this
to
one,
stay there. You
exactly,
know.
and you have one life to live. Like, Do you want to live it feeling this anxiousness every day that you go to work? Or do you want to live it being happy and fulfilled and understanding your purpose and being treated with dignity and respect, not just in a workplace, but in general in life? Like how you treat yourself and how you treat other people speaks volumes. And
Mm.
I think that we need to take a really good hard look at that, and to like I got so much, I guess this is not really so much judgment, but a lot of people were like, "Oh, you're happy-go-lucky. You're like this positive, vibrant person. Like bad things don't happen to you." Like I've even gotten remarks like that, and it's like trauma doesn't care if you're rich, middle class, upper class. Trauma will happen to whomever, whenever.
Mhm. Girl, you preaching, you teaching, good for you. I am really fucking proud of
Well,
you. You are one badass bitch right now. I love it.
thank you.
I
Thank you so much. That
I
means
could
so
see you
much.
on
It really does.
stage speaking that you need to be on a TED Talks.
I would love to be on a TED Talk. That is my ultimate dream. I would love to even go to a school and talk to high school students. I know when I was in high school and we had all these guest speakers. Oh my God, I loved every moment of it. So I definitely would love to pursue
You know
that.
what? I'm getting hit, and we'll definitely, because that's what I want to do, is get to the high schools because of everything that's been going on with the so-called the mental health thing. Uh, but I'll send you some if I could find them. I got some emails, like scripts to send to the, like principals and whatnot. So
Oh, that would be amazing. I would really appreciate that.
I'll share them with you if I could find them.
Thank you.
I gotta remember, where did I have those? Because you know what? Let's collaborate together and
I agree.
go, and yeah, because I think, yeah.
I would love to talk and help inspire and motivate people. Like that's I just love it. I love the journey that I'm on. I mean, it wasn't an easy journey. It was very hard. It was very difficult. But I love the person that I'm becoming. Like I'm becoming stronger and I'm becoming wiser. And yeah, I hate what happened to me, but it was a teaching tool and a teaching lesson to me. Like it just
And you
opened
just
my
bless
eyes.
it. Like,
Yeah,
thank you. I bless it because it gave me wisdom, knowledge, understanding, and compassion towards others that have experienced it as well as me.
yeah,
And
that
now
like
I can go and help those that are experiencing so they could get the healing that they need, and I could be the one to help them through it.
exactly. Like people need more advocates. People need more people in their corner. People don't need judgments or harsh comments or ridicule. Like, and just because you smile in a Facebook picture or you're happy and bubbly, it doesn't mean that trauma cannot happen to you. Like, I want to be very specific when I say that. And so many people are naive to what's like, I'm surrounded by a college and university here, and I see the naiveness of some of these students, and I'm just like, they're on their cell phones or they're like just not looking around at their surroundings, like what could possibly potentially happen, or you're on your phone and a car is coming. Like these are things that I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like that people need to be more aware of their surroundings.
Aware.
That's one of the things that I talk about in the course too, is I address, okay, what are your 6 surroundings? What do you need to do to take action to address these surroundings, to make that change in your life so you can get past that surrounding, or so you can do better with that surrounding, or
And
things that
avoid something,
tragic. Yeah.
yeah, another
So that
trauma.
Yeah, so that's really my hopes is, and even if people have gone through trauma and they go through more and more trauma down the road, because trauma hits you once doesn't mean it's never going to happen to you again. I worry about that every day with myself.
You
But I don't let it consume me. However,
and
I really,
go
sorry.
ahead. because you touched on something, and I was like, oh, I don't want to forget what she just said.
I
um,
just really think that people need to be aware that trauma can happen at any given point in time in your life, and it can happen again. Just because it happened once doesn't mean it's never a possibility down the road. So this course kind of prepares you for the steps that you need to take in the present moment as well as your future
so let me ask you something before we wrap this up. Because you mentioned about trauma can happen at any time, and then it could also happen again. Would it be safe to say, like, when we experience trauma and we don't heal from that trauma right away, we have another opportunity of experiencing the similar trauma again because we didn't deal with it the first time around?
I think there are some cases, like for instance, with domestic violence, if that's all the relate, like if you yourself grew up in a home of domestic violence and then say your past 6 relationships were all domestic abuse, that pattern is going to keep going on and keep going on unless you take the steps that you need in order to heal and get through it. It becomes like I worked with teen moms essentially, and some of them literally had a baby so that they could have somebody to love them because they never knew what love is. They always had toxic relationships, they had toxic families growing up. And so they thought that, okay, if I have a child, that person's going to love me. But it doesn't start with the child loving you, it starts with you loving yourself first and
Mhm.
foremost. How can you be a healthy parent if you can't take care of yourself? How can you help others if you can't take care of yourself?
Absolutely. Wow. I am truly amazed by you. Ashley, you are doing amazing, truly amazing. And I got your course, your website. Um, Actually, your website's on there. So if anybody is interested in the book, all you gotta do is click on the link below, and her course is also there. Which, by the way, beautiful website,
Thank
awesome
you.
job.
Oh, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that. Yeah, I'm
I
really happy with
love
the way it turned out.
it. It's perfect.
And I'll send you the affiliate links too for my course. So there's like a 20% off for anybody too with this podcast. So I'll send you all those affiliate links as well.
Okay, great. Because I'll put it into here on this one because
Perfect.
it'll be aired. I'm gonna squeeze it in next Friday. I usually
You're
do a
amazing.
transformation Friday, but I'm going to make an announcement. I'm like, hey, I just came across this and I had to share it for Transformation Friday. Enjoy, and I'll be back.
I love Transformation Friday. That sounds amazing. What a great idea. I love it.
I usually do I'm starting to do my own coaching, but I have to do a pre-recorded instead of live because I work on that day. So I'm trying to like format and sort of try to put something together. It's like a trial and error with me. Like let's try and see how this works. And I'm giving out free jewelry if people can, ask a question, and if they can find the answer, like a trivia thing, the next week I'll announce a winner.
I
So,
love that.
and I'm promoting my girlfriend, and she's got Pretty Bling Boutique. So, and I'm wearing a piece of her jewelry.
Oh,
I
I love
always
it. It's
wear.
beautiful.
It's a
That's
heart.
really pretty.
It looks like a family tree inside of a heart in a way. So that's why I love it. And then the
Oh,
earrings.
that's so,
So
the earrings look really good on you. They suit you.
I feel like I'm back in the 80s somewhat, but I'm afraid to have long my hair is going to get snagged in it. And I'm like, kind of thing. But I'm learning, and I love helping promote, women in business. So that's what I'm, working towards, and getting better and getting my show, really vamped into the purpose of what the show's about too, as well.
Well, thank you so much for sharing and promoting my course. I can't thank you enough for all your support. As soon as I reached out to you, you just jumped right on board. So
I'm like,
Thank
"Oh,
you.
yeah, I wanna see what she's doing." So,
Well,
well, thank you again, Ashley, and I wish you I'm sending you love. I love you. You have transformed into an amazing goddess that you are, and you're meant to be, and just keep going. And I'm really proud of you.
thank you. Right back at you. Like, I love you and I'm so proud of you and everything you're doing for so many people. Giving them this amazing platform to share their stories is so uplifting and so inspiring. And it's transforming so many lives. So thank you from the bottom of my heart.
You're welcome. Until then, I'll have you back on when
Deal.
we start doing public speaking at the high schools, and
Yes,
we have to have a catch up. Like, hey, what are you doing about? Okay, sweetie.
yes, absolutely.
Okay. Wow. Go check out her healing healing from trauma course if you're in need to, and desire, you have a desire to change your life, get over the trauma, heal from it. Go to Ashley's website. It's down below. Click on the button, get the book. And then my intention is that this helps you if you are dealing with any kind of trauma and are suffering and you want to move on and transform and become the best version of yourself. So go check it out. Until then, stay tuned in to Wake Up with KC because you never know who I'm going to have here on the next episode.